Hey everyone, so today I want to talk a bit about Heidegger and Nietzsche. Where do they overlap? What's the difference? Obviously, I've talked a lot about Nietzsche on this channel, so I want to give Heidegger a bit of a chance. I love this art. I did not draw this or create this. So, Heidegger's main work is called Being and Time. So, the big question, obviously, is what is being? Heidegger says since, the time of Socrates and Plato, we've always dealt with the question of beings. What is a being? Something we can say something about. We can say something about this artwork I just did, say something about a plant, animal, mineral, human. We're all beings. Humans are in a unique position in which we can interrogate and ask the question of what is being with no S. Does he ever answer it? Not really. He says we're in a unique position as the being that asks the question of being. If you read the book, it's a 400-page stream of consciousness. I would not recommend starting with that unless you have the curated version. There is in English a version contained in the basic writings of Martin Heidegger. I believe it's about 60 or 70 pages, so it's like the highlight reel. A lot of the work is just moving to the line of scrimmage. So, if you are a football fan, so yeah, read a curated version or read one of his later writings on technology, for instance. But he has an interesting relationship with Nietzsche. He lectures on Nietzsche at Freiburg in the 30s and 40s, and you can get that in a 4-volume work. And it's interesting. He talks about the eternal return, he talks about the will to power. For those of you who don't know, which I doubt is anyone in my audience, I have the smartest audience in the world. The Will to Power is a collection of quotes by Nietzsche. It's curated by his sister and her partner. She was a German nationalist. She was associated with controversial movements in Germany. I believe she even tried to start a German colony in the Americas. So she obviously has a bias, and she chose certain of Nietzsche's quotes to arrange and had a view and mission in it. But what do we have from Nietzsche before 1889? We do seem to have something unique. He fully embraces the Copernican turn in the 17th century, sort of away from traditional metaphysics, what he might call nihilism, like the Christian worldview, the Platonic worldview. He thinks Christianity abandons this world for another world, sort of similar to Heidegger in a way. But he's not done. He's not done. And Heidegger doesn't think he's done. He thinks that Nietzsche does have metaphysics. If you read the story of the madman who announces the death of God in The Gay Science, he says, we've taken on too great a task. We've murdered God and we have nothing to put in its place. We must become gods. And Nietzsche wants to create values, and he doesn't get to complete his project about what that might mean, but I think we can sort of gauge it from earlier works like The Gay Science, Zarathustra, Beyond Good and Evil, Twilight of the Idols even. As you may, well, you know I have the smartest audience, so the subtitle to Twilight of the Idols is How to Philosophize with a Hammer. And so basically destroying the idols of nihilism. Heidegger takes this pretty literally. He says, there's a problem with Nietzsche. In the Heideggerian sense of being, Dasein, our role, of course, is special and important, but it's largely to nurture beings. So he thinks we can perfect being. Farming, in a sense, is just making things grow more efficiently, but he thinks as we move to things like gasoline-powered tractors, we're starting to forget. We're starting to forget what we're really there for. And because he focuses more on thinking and less on action, he has a problem with this. He also compares the water wheel, which used to be used in mechanized baking. It went with the flow of a river or spring, whereas a hydroelectric dam, you collect the actual water and use it later, right? You can apply this also to mining coal and resources. He kind of thinks if you're not using something like, we might say, firewood, it's already sort of has to be dry, so it's already in a sense dead. If we're storing something for years or decades, like you can get batteries now that store energy for you to use at your leisure. I have them for my cell phone. I've had them in my desk drawer for months at this point, and they still would work. We're alienated in. He calls it the reserve supply, and he thinks that's not necessarily a good thing. Obviously, in the age of AI, he gives a lecture on the excess of the Industrial Revolution in 1953, so 71 years ago. In the age of AI, we're even further removed from being. Now, a few people, a dozen people can do the work of thousands. And what about texts? What about something like War and Peace? You can get a summary of it from, say, what's it called? ChatGPT. You can ask, I want a 1,200 word summary of this novel, as opposed to reading 1,200 pages. And that really takes away the focus of your mind. You don't have to focus on the characters as much. You know the characters already. You know the events. So it changes the fundamental way we read, and reading's obviously one of the arts. And this looks like it was done on a computer, not painted, of course. So this art I'm talking about, these two gentlemen here, and I like this. I like this a lot. Again, I'm not the artist. So that's sort of the difference, I think, that Heidegger sees. He thinks that Nietzsche would have embraced the sort of post-World War II capitalist overload. And not necessarily just capitalist. Almost a hyperproduction. You saw the Soviet Union. There was a sea, the Aral Sea, however you pronounce it, that basically completely dried up because of Soviet industry, the production of cotton. And we're trying to bring it back. There's new ideas, obviously, of environmental conservation. So the question is, was Heidegger right? Was Nietzsche right? We have seen we can impact the earth, obviously, through deforestation. Heidegger would probably say, well, the axe does change the landscape and can change the climate, but it can't change it the way the chainsaw can, or modern forestry can. I believe at some point they were even using explosives to do forestry to create timber. So we're changing our fundamental relation to being, and the burning of fossil fuels is responsible, obviously, for a rise in sea levels, a heating of the earth. So Heidegger is kind of right on that, but is he just strawmanning Nietzsche? Does Nietzsche really have this vision of man as simply master of beings? I don't know that he does. I think so. In simple terms, Heidegger prefers the life of contemplation and thinking. He thinks that's our role as the being that contemplates being. How's that sound? But Nietzsche also has sort of some philosophical ideas. I mean, he's a philosopher, so that sounds stupid for me to say that, but he has ideas surrounding thought, the eternal return, his character Zarathustra spends most of his life contemplating this, but he doesn't contemplate it actually in that significant a way. It's sort of something he just accepts and he wants to actively spread. So yeah, there is some truth to this, but we're in a spiritual age. I know a lot of people enjoy meditation, becoming attuned to their bodies, whatever, yoga, um, dancing. I don't know what you know people do, but yeah, Nietzsche. There is room for contemplation in Nietzsche, and I think this can be a route to discussion. I'm not going to say I'm an expert on either thinker, but I want to bring them together.